Hello, Kentucky. Andrija, the Croatian player, should play more minutes for Kentucky. Isn't it time for Pope to give a guy more time? Let's see about that. The close loss to North Carolina, once again, left its mark on Kentucky not only because of the 67-64 score, but also because of the readings it provokes about the team's current situation and decisions that are still being made within the season. Amidst cold numbers, inconsistent performance, and another stumble against a ranked opponent, one name went almost unnoticed by those who only look at the statistics: Andrija Gelavic. And that's precisely the central point of the discussion. The Croatian doesn't need more attention. He needs time. More minutes, more consistency, more space within a process that is still being shaped by Mark Pope. On paper, his performance doesn't stand out. 6 points, 4 rebounds, 1 block, 3 fouls, negative plus minus. None of that, in isolation, suggests an impact. But the game, as almost always happens in college basketball, told a very different story. Gelavic was on the court during the most delicate moment of the game, went through the most sterile period of Kentucky's offense in the second half, and yet he was the player who best responded to the most difficult challenge of the night: defending a generational talent from North Carolina. When Cam Williams had to leave due to fouls, the scenario seemed to be unfolding against the Wildcats. Caleb Wilson, a 5-star recruit, a lottery pick in the draft, averaging a double-double and practically wearing the Kentucky jersey, had a clear path to dominate the game. It was precisely at that moment that Gelavic entered and changed the tone of the match. Without fanfare, without expansive gestures, without seeking offensive protagonism, he did exactly what Pope needed. He physically sustained the duel, denied space, forced uncomfortable shots, and removed Wilson's role as aggressor. The North Carolina Stars' final numbers are the clearest reflection of this. 15 points on 19 shots, the worst percentage of his season so far. A large part of these misses came under the direct marking of Gelavic, who used his body, positioning, and reading of the game to survive a matchup that, on paper, seemed extremely unfavorable. The screen in the final minutes, already under maximum pressure, when Kentucky was still winning by 1 point, symbolizes the kind of presence that doesn't make headlines but changes the rhythm of a game. When Gelavic says, after the game, that he only wanted to get on the court and play for Mark Pope, he also reveals a lot about his current position within a roster. A player who understands that he is still developing, that his chance would come sooner or later, and that, in the meantime, his role is to respond when called upon. Pope, for his part, made a point of publicly acknowledging the good minutes delivered by the power forward. The praise wasn't exaggerated, nor was it merely perfunctory. It sounded like an honest recognition from someone who knows they are polishing an important piece of the team. The point that now arises is simple and unavoidable. Gelavic needs more playing time on the court. Not as a magic solution to all problems, but as part of Kentucky's own growth this season. His outside shots didn't fall against UNC. It's true, but his 3 baskets in the paint were hard-fought, physical, earned against one of the most promising players in college basketball. That's not a detail. That's a sign of evolution. Mark Pope's Kentucky is still under construction. The losses to Michigan State, Louisville, and now North Carolina expose growing pains, adjustments that take time, choices that are still being tested. In this context, keeping Gelavic restricted to the bench seems to go against what the game itself showed. He doesn't solve everything, but he adds value. It doesn't change the score on its own, but it changes the matchup. And sometimes that's exactly what a team needs to take the next step. Quietly, without fanfare, without a social media campaign, Gelavic has been showing that he can be more than just an occasional supporting player. He's not yet a ready-made answer, but he's clearly part of building something bigger. And In a Kentucky team that seeks identity, consistency, and defensive toughness to compete at a high level, giving this process more time doesn't seem like a risk. It seems like a necessity. The season won't be defined by one game, nor by a losing streak, but by the decisions that accumulate along the way. And now, what's the best path forward? The Kentucky locker room has never been a place to hide feelings, and now, more than ever, that reality is blatant. The words used by the players themselves after the loss to North Carolina, a little sinister, very sad, reveal a heavy, emotionally charged atmosphere, but one that refuses to flirt with despair. The start of the season is, bluntly, disappointing. 5-3 in the record, no real impactful wins for the record, and 3 straight losses against ranked opponents. For a program the size of Kentucky, this sounds almost like an early warning sign. And yet, there's something profoundly revealing in this moment. There are no empty speeches, no rhetorical escapes. There is genuine frustration. Mark Pope didn't try to sugarcoat it. He acknowledged that there were devastated players in the locker room, spoke of humility forced by the game itself, of resilience, of a painful learning process. He got straight to the point. When a team resists what needs to change, the game itself exposes, humiliates, and demands its due. This frankness, far from weakening the team, seems to be precisely what keeps the group going. The contrast between the expectations created at the beginning of the season and the current reality is inevitable. Pope took over talking about ambition, an expensive, deep, versatile roster, the famous Ferrari he couldn't wait to drive. Today, that Ferrari still falters, especially when the level of competition increases. Kentucky has been dominant against weaker teams, but struggles when facing elite-level programs. The comparison to a G League team is not gratuitous. Too strong for the smaller teams, yet still unstable against the Giants. This wasn't what was expected, but perhaps it was exactly the kind of reality check this group needed to go through. The most interesting thing, however, is not just the results, but the emotional response of the team. Andrija Gelavic, who has been gaining ground precisely amidst the difficulties, didn't hide his sadness, but also didn't show panic. Otega Oa followed the same path. Both spoke of recent wounds, of a strange atmosphere, but also of trust, unity, and daily work. Neither of them spoke of despair. They spoke of process, of a long season, of time to correct course. This response says a lot about Mark Pope's leadership. A coach who loses 3 consecutive games to ranked opponents could easily see his locker room fracture. What we see, on the contrary, is a group that suffers together, but remains aligned with the coach's discourse. The message circulating internally is clear. It's not time for panic. It's time for daily presence, maturation, and fine-tuning. The players talk about this without a script, almost intuitively. This is not common in college basketball. This is built. The fans, even in the face of defeats, continue to fill the arena. This detail is not small. It changes the emotional weight of each game, amplifies the pressure, but also fuels the feeling of collective responsibility. Gelavic cited this spontaneously. Frustration becomes fuel when you look at the full stands. When you understand that there's a history being played out there, but there's also a confidence that hasn't yet been withdrawn. What sustains hope within the locker room isn't naivete. It's the conviction that Kentucky was close to turning those games around. Close doesn't count statistically, but it counts psychologically for a team in formation. Malachi Moreno was direct in stating that, in his view, none of the 3 games against ranked teams should have been lost. This doesn't erase the mistakes, but it reinforces the feeling that the gap between where the team is and where it can be might not be as large as the standings suggest. The immediate challenge couldn't be more symbolic. Gonzaga, away, in Nashville. A new baptism of fire. A quick chance to rewrite the narrative. Pope doesn't speak of this as a threat, but as an opportunity. Ola echoes this thought when he says that the team will have, in a few days, the chance to change the script. There's no room for prolonged lamentation. The schedule doesn't allow it. The SEC hasn't even started yet, and this, paradoxically, is presented as a relief. Was the start of the season bad? Yes. Is the criticism justified? Absolutely. But there's something different about this Kentucky team. The crisis isn't generating noise, it's generating internal dialogue. The talk in the locker room isn't pointing fingers, it's pointing out paths forward. Sadness isn't paralyzing, it's being converted into motivation. And this directly reflects the type of leadership Mark Pope has been exercising. He didn't promise shortcuts. He promised hard work, confronting reality, and growth from discomfort. The season is long. Too long for definitive pronouncements. Too short to repeat mistakes without learning from them. And how are we going to do that? The recruitment of Jordan Knox to Kentucky football is more than just a roster addition. It's a clear sign that the Wolstein era begins with firm and strategic steps. At a time when the program needed to reaffirm its identity and attract talent, Knox's arrival carries both symbolic and practical weight. He's not just a community college player with an impressive background, but he also represents the kind of resilient and motivated athlete who can thrive under Stein's leadership. Someone who, despite the challenges faced, is ready to make his mark at the collegiate level. Knox, once considered a rare gem in the class of 2023 with his 4 stars and is ranking among the top 201 players in the country by 247 Sports, embodies the transformative potential that exists when opportunities are well utilized. His journey so far reflects both the difficulties and the possibilities of modern recruitment. He began as a promising prospect from South Carolina, initially committed to Northwestern, where he had a promising start as a freshman, playing in 10 games and starting in 3 of them. However, his early exit from the Big Ten and his stint at Northwest Mississippi Community College demonstrate that the path to Lexington was anything but linear. But it's precisely this journey that makes Knox so valuable to Kentucky. Players coming from community colleges often bring a different mindset, shaped by adverse experiences and the constant need to prove their worth. With 2 years of eligibility remaining, he arrives on the team as a redshirt junior, ready to make an immediate impact on the offensive line. And considering that 247 Sports ranks him as the 111th best recruit from community colleges and the 7th best interior offensive guard in that category, it's clear that there's an expectation that he will fulfill that role. Stein's choice of Knox also reveals something about his approach to recruitment. While many coaches focus exclusively on the most hyped prospect from elite schools, Stein seems willing to explore alternative paths to find pieces that fit into the tactical puzzle he's assembling. The offensive line is undoubtedly a critical area for any American football team, especially in a scheme that values quarterback protection and creating safe running lanes. Knox's experience, even if limited, combined with his imposing physique, suggests he could be a key piece in solidifying this unit. Furthermore, the context in which this commitment occurred adds another layer of significance. After Mark Stoops' departure, many questioned whether recruits already committed to Kentucky would remain loyal to the program or seek other destinations. Stein's ability to not only retain much of the original group, but also attract new talent like Knox is a testament to the vision and charisma he brought to Lexington. He's not just building a roster, he's cultivating trust at a crucial time for the program. National Signing Day is often a watershed moment for college programs, marking the official start of new cycles and laying the groundwork for future seasons. For Kentucky, signing Knox not only strengthens the current roster, but also sends a powerful message. Kentucky football is ready to compete in an increasingly fierce landscape. Knox's decision to join the Wildcats, amidst a highly competitive market, demonstrates that Stein is already achieving something fundamental, making talented players see Kentucky as an attractive and viable destination. It's important to emphasize that while fans celebrate this new addition, there's a lot of work ahead. Integrating a player like Knox, ensuring he adapts quickly to the system, and developing synergy with his line mates will be essential to maximizing his potential. Furthermore, Stein's success will depend not only on individual signings, but on how he can transform these isolated pieces into a cohesive and competitive collective. However, the simple fact that excitement surrounding Kentucky football is growing again is a triumph in itself. A week ago, the mood was one of uncertainty. Now, with Knox officially on board and the promise of more moves on the horizon, there's a renewed sense of optimism. The Will Stein era began with a clear statement. Kentucky isn't just rebuilding, it's reimagining what's possible within the white lines of the field. Share your opinion.